Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We're really pleased that you're here. My name is Bob Kramich from Leverage Point, and today's session is focused on a challenge many commercial leaders face every day. You've quantified the value of your product or your service. You've built a solid business case, and still the deal slows down. Negotiations drag on, or price pressure creeps in. The question isn't whether value exists, it's why that value doesn't always get believed, right? And that's exactly what today's session is all about. We're fortunate to be joined by Todd Snelgrove, managing partner at Experts in Value and one of the world's leading authorities on value-based selling, pricing, and total profit added. Todd has spent more than 2 decades as Global VP of Value at SKF and has led value initiatives with companies like SAP, GE Digital, and ABB, as well as numerous Fortune 1000 organizations across industrial, healthcare, pharma, fintech, and SaaS markets. In today's session, Todd is going to walk us through the 10 dimensions of a high-performing value management program. What works, what doesn't, and why besting 5% profit improvement by managing value, not just calculating it. With that, I'm excited to turn it over to Todd. Todd, thank you for joining us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Leverage Point, for the work you do. Today's about kind of some unintended things I learned along the way, because when I started this 20-something years ago, I thought, look, Mr. Customer, here's the number. What do you not see that it's worth to pay me a little bit more to get all this value? But, through my reflections and the work and some research that I've been involved with, see that there's 10 dimensions, and I'm going to go through 2 different pieces of research. So one will be based on this book called Value First Then Price. What I think is interesting about it, it's got 10 companies that talk about their value management program and what they do to actually implement it into the business and realize that value. One, but the other side of it is 4 or 5 procurement people saying, am I willing to pay for value? Funny enough, the answer is yes, but here's the things you have to do. And again, it's more than just the business case. So with that, I will get going here. So Bob kind of gave you a flavor. B2B is my background. Anybody that is running into pricing pressure and that has value is what I work with to help implement the tools, and then the process and the culture and the ability to go sell that value. So what I said earlier, this is an article that came out midsummer last year called Acing Value-Based Sales. It was published in MIT Sloan Management Review. And there's 2 professors that I wrote it with. I mean, they did a lot of the writing. Marco Bertini is a professor from Harvard, Assad. He started at London Business School. That's how I got to meet him when he started teaching value selling, value pricing, value management in an executive class. And then he moved on to a school called Assad in Spain. And the gentleman Oded, and I can never pronounce Oded's name properly, so I won't try, came in. And the 3 of us stay very well connected. They bring me over sometimes to work in some value management, value pricing sessions. So we reached out to some companies that I've done some work with and know over the years and said, okay, let's really rethink this value management. Every company wants to sell value. They have a tool maybe to quantify value. Hopefully it's not an Excel sheet, but they have a tool. But what else needs to happen? So the key takeaways from the first part of the presentation will be from Michelin, the tire people, that changed their business model to, not selling tires, but getting revenue per ton of mining material moved. West Montrose, I think it's Montrose, I should check my spelling there, is a consulting company in the software world. They found that customers that measured value, bought value, track value were more profitable and happier. Scott Forge is a big industrial company in the Midwest, well, global, but their headquarters are in the Midwest. And Borealis is a chemical company, global, but my contact's based in Europe. And then again, 25 years of doing this. And, some of these are almost unintentional. I didn't see them happening, but in reflection, you go, wow, you're right. Because again, it's more than just the number. So the idea is that there's these 5 major areas. First, we need to motivate customers to want to talk. And SKF, a big industrial supplier, but Companies would say, Todd, I buy $10 billion worth of products from my suppliers. You guys are 3 million. I don't have the time or effort or interest because your product, which is called a bearing, is similar to the other guy's product. How much time and effort am I going to really put into comparing two things that look and smell the same, have the same ISO and part numbers? I'm not motivated to focus there. I'm not educated to understand that there really is a difference. Show me that I should be thinking about this, put some numbers to it, make me rethink. For anybody that's on the Challenger sale, you could probably say that's what's fitting here. We're challenging their assumptions that, it's not just the dollar value that matters, it's the profit impact that matters. Then we get to quantifying. Can you put that in a business case that makes sense, that's believable? We'll talk a little bit about what best-in-class business cases look like. Again, when I started, I just went right to the business case. I would get brought in and yes, we're higher price, but look, here's the numbers. And I'll show you a funny slide that I used ages ago to get a deal, but I'll tell you the story when we get there. So quantified, then we need to translate it into a information and a story. I don't care if it's in PowerPoint, whatever it is that your contact can sell within their organization. We've all heard that there's 6.7 people, whatever it is, making a buying decision. They might buy into your logic. They might believe it. They might stand there and nod. But now you need to leave them with something that makes sense, that they can explain to the CFO, the CEO, to the business stakeholders that, hey, we're getting more value by choosing this supplier. So, how that looks, how easy it's to understand, how visual it is, makes a big difference. And then reward. The customer makes more money buying this way, but you make more money selling this way. So those kind of the 5 major areas that we'll get into, and I'll give you some examples. I'm not going to go through all these slides in detail. You're going to get them all within a few days here. But this is my work with procurement organizations over the years, and it was kind of funny. I got a call. I was at a conference, and some different professors came up to me and said, we've been trying to get procurement to buy on value, but you salespeople don't do a good job of articulating it to us. So they brought me in and said, how do we choose a value supplier? What is a value supplier? How should we pay them? So some of the statistics from different research over the years, and again, you get to read this, but industrial companies, Manufacturers Alliance did a survey. I did their chief procurement officers summit in 2013. But they asked ahead of time, do you buy in value? If so, do you measure? And I think I wrote down 50 different variables, downtime, inventory, shipping, receiving, return. I'm not going to go through all of them. Do you measure these things when you're making a decision? And then they bucketed the customers into 2 groups, people that looked holistically at all these dimensions or people that looked at landed cost. They call it total cost of ownership, but mostly landed cost, the price of the widget, the shipping, and the receiving. And then they said, okay, how profitable are you? Lo and behold, the companies that measure a lot more data points were 35% more profitable. The favorite one, strategic account management, sales. We believe that we're bringing more value to our strategic accounts, our bigger customers. We believe we deliver 49% more value to our strategic customers for numerous reasons. But strategic customers that bought on value said they receive 40% more value from those suppliers. And you can see the middle columns here. These are some of the professors that have written stuff with me over the years. But, the procurement professors saying we've got to think about value. We got to buy based on value. So this is the motivating. Look, there's more money. So I'm not going right to look at my number. It's better than somebody else. I'm saying, look, there's more money if we change how we interact. Now, everybody, if you could go into the Q&A, I'm going to give you a quick business scenario, and I'm going to see what you think the value is to the customer. So you're all procurement people right now, and you're all buying a contract that's for $1 million a year for 5 years. And you have 2 suppliers. You have somebody that comes in and says, I'm going to give you a 10% price savings. Okay? And then you have the value person come in and said, I'm going to give you 10% annual profit improvement, true cost reduction, revenue improvement, all these types of things. So option A, 10% price. Option B, 10% value. And there's a few other conditions. Let's just assume there's no annual price increase. There better be, but let's assume there's not, because option A is a 3%, option B we have 3%. So let's just take that out because it muddies the waters. This is the important part. The value delivery company, every time they bring value, that value becomes sustainable. Once I teach a customer to reduce their inventory by doing an inventory analysis, as an example, their inventory stays reduced. Once I teach them how to make their pumps last longer by installing them properly, they last longer. Very important point. And I'll assume the price savings become cash. All the research shows it doesn't, but we'll just assume the price savings becomes cash. So the Q&A button at the top there, how much do I save by the price person? So $1 million a year, 5 years, it's a $5 million contract total. How much do I save with the 10% price? And how much do I save with the 10% annual savings? And I've asked this question around the world for a long time. And I'm going to open up the Q&A just to see if anybody's actually.
This is Aaron. I don't think the Q&A feature is working.
Okay.
Do you want to type that in? Or if folks want to ask the chat, it looks like the chat is working.
Let's try the chat, people.
Yeah, let's just use the chat.
And you can still see the slides, so you've got the data. Put numbers in. So we're going to move along just because of the sake of
Everyone's
time.
getting ready for break.
That's right.
Everyone's getting ready for the holiday.
I'm not sure if the
Okay, there you go. So
we might be having a technical.
Okay, it's fine. I mean, but you know, I'm not joking. So I didn't have the slide, and we were at a big steel customer, and I was trying to explain this, and the customer was like, I don't know what math they teach in Canada, but 10% is 10%. Like your 10% can't be better than their 10%. I'm like, yes, it is. And the fist goes on the table, and I'm like, look, I went up, I kind of drew this really ugly. It still is ugly, but $1 million a year, and 10% price is going to bring that down to 900,000. I think that's pretty obvious. Okay, whether it's off invoice or it's in the end of the year, I don't care. But our solutions and team have the ability to come in and focus on energy reduction. Align the pump so they use less energy, as an example. So percent, $100,000 of energy savings is $100,000. And he says to me at this point, he goes, okay, now the 10% price I can see it and measurable, but energy. So okay, here's the formula for energy savings. Here's how we'll measure it. If I don't at least hit you 100,000, I'll write you a check. He goes, okay, now you got my attention. I'll pay you more for the bearings, but you'll save me this somewhere else. And then he goes, okay, wait a minute. You're still not any better. Why would I take risk, even though you've guaranteed it? It's pretty easy to cash the rebate check or the 10% price check. And I said, yeah, but I'm worth a lot more. And he goes, I don't understand what you mean. This guy was a senior vice president of a publicly traded company. Come on. I said, because year two, I'm going to come in and work on inventory reduction. As an example, again, this is your value proposition. My competitor did not offer a 10% incremental price savings every year. They'd be bankrupt. They offered a 10% price savings held for 5 years. So next year it's inventory. Next year it's making the machines last longer. Next year this is, again, put your own value proposition, reduce lubricant costs. You put the right seals on there, you don't use as much lubricant. I won't bore you on the how. And the energy that I saved you is still happening every year. This is becoming cumulative. And again, I just said, it turns out that a 10% price savings is worth 10%. A 10% per year saving is worth 30%, 3 times as much. And when you do the numbers, it's worth $1.5 million. Now, we had to agree on what the numbers were to use, but the formulas we were to use, and to sign off an implementation, which is the other stuff we'll get to today. But hopefully I've motivated you that this is worth your time and effort. So now we're getting into the education phase. There's so much data in the market right now that shows what total value is, total cost. Real quickly, the difference between total cost of ownership, it's only on the cost side. I want my customers to be more profitable, which is cost, but also revenue. You know, if I can help them make more, sell it at a higher price, you know, reduce churn, whatever that is, I'm going to calculate that and take it. So this is an old slide from Accenture. It happened to fit my old business very well. But the initial purchase price of these different assets, airplanes, trucks, industrial equipment, we'll just say fan gearboxes, is 10 to 12%. The operating cost in disposal was 88. And this is for in-use, industrial use, or in-use, I mean, not personal vehicles, but the same argument. So real quickly, I end up working on our procurement side, believe it or not, because our CEO said, if we're selling this way and we truly believe it, why are we not buying this way? So the company's buying a bunch of industrial machines. I won't bore you with what they were. We had 3 suppliers do the technical qualification and bid. And Bo Inge Stenson, the chief procurement officer of a $11 billion company, says to me, well, which one do you think we should choose? Like, we're all voting on this matrix. I said, I won't use names, but the higher price one. He goes, of course. The sales guy always wants to spend the most and buy the most, and you know, they don't care about the bottom line, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, they're 10% more expensive. And I said, yeah, but they're 2% less to run. And he says, I don't know what math they teach you in Canada. So I've heard this more than once in my life, but how is 2% better than 10%? And I said, you need the denominator. A 10% savings of 12% is 1.2. You're saving 10% of that small red bar, but a 2% of the big bar, 2% of 88 is 1.76. 1.2 is about 35% better. And he goes, they talked about all this stuff, you know, how long it lasts, the inventory, the parts. I can't remember all their value proposition, but one of them took the time to actually put some numbers to it. And I could easily do the math. I'm like, okay, pay more now, but save more as we go. And it's worth a fair amount more. They were going to do more than a 2% savings, but even at the minimum 2%, it was a 30% better choice. So now I'm, you know, educating. I'm motivated. There's some money. Now I'm getting kind of more specific. Ugly slide, but I used to use this. Well, I use it here. We're still educating here. Option A, bearings cost a lot more than this, but it's an example. You know, these are big industrial bearings. But option A, ISO, good manufacturer, well-known, reputable. We'll just say $10, and I'm 15. I'm 50% higher price. So from a price perspective, it makes sense to buy the one on the left. I mean, they look the same, they smell the same, they fit in the same machine, they both turn the same way, they made the same specifications. But our sales team used to go to the market, and they're very good, very smart. And they said, yeah, but ours, I won't go into the why. This is not the time or place or interest, I assume. The one on the right is going to use less lubrication or energy or all these things. And some of it might be the product, or some of it might be the knowledge that the team brings. Like, I don't care how I get the benefit, whether it's in the product or the services that you bring with it, but we would leave it there. That would be our sales presentation, pre-value quantification, the value management. And if we were talking to a technical person, most of them would get it. They would nod. Because if you're another engineer, you say increased reliability or this, they subconsciously put numbers to it. But procurement and finance people don't. So if I could say, you want to know what? Using your numbers or industry averages or as a starting point, the one on the left, the actual total is 87. The one on the right is 57. I'm actually creating a $30 profit improvement, you know, increased production, because that's not a cost reduction on the right. So now that $5 price difference is an investment. I never want to be seen as a premium product, because procurement hates premium. Premium to them is paying more because of a logo. I'm an investment. Now, all the customer can say, not all, but what they did say was, okay, where did the data come from? Industry research, your people would be even better, but you know, it came from somewhere. It wasn't me just sitting writing stuff down. Industry averages. Where have you done it before? It's got to be relevant. It was done in a law office in Norway. I'm a paper mill in Canada. No, I mean, make it look and sound like me close enough. It doesn't need to be the exact same, but I can nod. You're saying that you can make my pumps last longer. A pump is a pump. That's good enough. Doesn't need to be exact, but it needs to be relevant. It needs to sound like me. And what's the risk reward? If you're asking me to pay $5 more, but you'll save me $1, you're taking a lot of the value created. I'll want a guarantee because that's a lot of risk. You're asking me to pay most of that. In this example, I'm saying a $5 investment saves you or makes you $30. I need to be 15% right. So I always do a cash flow break-even analysis. Here's the minimum improvement you need to justify this investment. Even if he's only half right, we're still getting a 300% ROI. So again, the educating them in how it would be done. Quantification. Again, the importance of having the tool and the right tool. I started in 99, I think, before Leverage Point was born. Piece of paper, napkin, to be honest, then Excel. But it turns out we needed a structured tool because I'm not an engineer. So I'm almost a good example of our customer coming to us and saying, I don't understand. You got these formulas running everywhere. The coefficient of friction on it, I don't know what any of that means. If there's not a dollar sign in front of it, I don't get it. And I joke with my kids. If you said to me, what's 10 plus 5? I go, huh? What's $10 plus 5? It was 15. I mean, my mind can get the answer before dollars or number, something I understand. So, everybody in different divisions and different countries and different functions was trying to explain the value, but no structured way. Here we go. So this is just, again, this is not a sales presentation, but a fool with a tool is still a fool. And I see so many companies that they say, Todd, we've got a great value management program. We know our value. Come in and train us on selling value, or come in and train us on negotiating or pricing for it. And then I get there, and I'm talking big companies, 30, 40, $50 billion, top 20 in the world. And they've got Excel spreadsheets. And I'm like, oh my word. And this is what I see, okay? I'm not going to use names, but number one, accurate formulas. We've all fat-fingered something once or there, but there is mistakes all over these. Some of the companies that Bob mentioned, they brought me in, and I, within minutes, could find wrong formulas. Instead of it -1 with a bracket, it was whatever. I won't bore you with it. But now I'm making a difference between accurate and right. I'm not going to use company names, but I've seen Excel sheets be used, and I hate to use the term knowingly, go to the market with false calculations. Okay. And I've called them out going, are you serious? And I'll show you what I see all the time. Cash flow. Okay. We'll just say you're a software company and you can speed up how quickly you get paid, or you can slow down how you pay your suppliers. Okay. Just don't worry about it. And they will claim that it's worth the dollar value of that. So I'm making numbers up. I pay Comcast $100 a month, but internet cable. I wish it was only 100, but you get the idea. And I pay them every 30 days. So January 30th, February, 12 times in a year, I pay them $100 a month. I magically figure out a way to pay them in 60 days. This company would say, well, then, you've got $100 a month for one more month than you used to have. You have $100. No, I don't. I have $100 in my bank account that will just say 5% interest. I don't have 100. I still owe the $100. I'm just paying it later. Cash flow is not cash. If anybody, I've got articles, I've got finance articles on this. It's not eliminated. So when you increase a customer's revenue, and I got caught on this in the early days, I went to a paper company and we had a way to increase their production speed so they could make more paper and sell more paper. And I tried to claim the revenue of that paper. And then the chief finance officer goes, Todd, I'm going to pay you in paper. I said, well, I need money. And he goes, well, you're not creating money, you're creating me revenue. And then I said, that's a good point. That's an honest, fair point. But in this case, where I'm increasing revenue and keeping the assets the same, except for the investment in the solution, I want to be able to take contribution margin. Your fixed costs stay the same. The CEO is not getting paid more. You're not creating a new paper mill. You're not buying a new machine. We're not asking you to do overtime, so we can take contribution margin. And in worst case, We can get into just margin improvement. I don't know why, but reasonable ranges. I've seen so many, you could say what we've seen is this improves ABC by 3 to 5%. Okay, I'll probably run both calculations to get a flavor, but a lot of companies I see, if we improve this by 1%, it'd be worth that. And the joke I make is, if my house wasn't in Michigan, it was in downtown New York, it would be worth more. That's an if statement that has no reasoning of why you can do it, no backdrop of where you've done it. If, okay. The output needs to be in the right format. You need ROI. You need the spelling to be accurate. I mean, this is what I've seen. Currency symbols, currency calculations being wrong, some sort of disclaimer. You don't want to be in court. Yeah, you gave me a business case saying I was going to make $1 million. Nowhere does it say that this is a model based on your input and not guaranteeing. I mean, you should have some sort of generic disclaimer. When it's appropriate, have IRR and NPV. If you're selling a $500 solution, you probably don't need to overcomplicate it. But if you're selling a $10 million, you probably need net present value and the like. So the output needs to be applicable. You need to have references or links or something to your justification. 99% of the people I don't think ever looked at the references. As per Paper Industry Association, best in class is 98.2%. We've heard of that number. Okay, yeah. Or journal of this or that, like something. Or a link to a success story on your website. Or we've done this 147 times and this is the average. Something saying we think we could save 5%. Why? I mean, again, there's so many people doing that. It ruins the people that do the right work and the credibility. It needs to be visual. Again, I never realized this when I started. I'll show you what I think looks good in a few slides, but the cash flow, the ROI, the waterfalls, or the stack graphs and stuff. Your business case is going to be taken by your person, your contact, and that's going to be passed around the business. If it doesn't look professional and visual, it doesn't seem credible. Some of these huge companies, I'm like, your software company this big, and you're sending an Excel file. It's right away. It's making me go, wait a minute. I like to have stages of the case. I'm testing, I'm proposing something to a customer. The customer's accepting it. They bought it. We use the term accepted. I'm not saying it's the right term, but management wants to see how many orders we were getting. Well, they've accepted the logic, so they bought it. And then this thing called verification, where you go back, and I put it here not by the salesperson, but I mean, you go back and say, what actually happened? You either could have delivered more value, the projected value, or less value. The reason why I want to do this is if it's less value, 90% of the time it could be fixed. You didn't do this right, or you didn't change that process, or these people didn't get trained. I mean, the value's still there, it just wasn't implemented. Customers love it when you come back. It's the best upsell opportunity you can get. You care. So most of you probably have a CRM system. We made the proposal this date. The customer implemented it on this date. Let's have a follow-up, check it, and see where we are. And then I also say I'd like a success story if it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Over time, if you keep using the same system, you can start to say, we've done this before. This customer or this segment seems to have this average, this minimum, this maximum, this mean. And I'm not joking. When I go to customer and I said, I've done this 840 times around the world. Here's the min, here's the max, here's the mean, here's the average. And they go, you know more than we do. Where if you got an Excel spreadsheet and everybody's got it somewhere, you're not collecting any of the data. You can't be predictive. It's got to be clear and easy to use. Whenever I see engineers or technical people say, get into spreadsheets, it's, can I make it more complicated? The more tabs I have, the better. No, it's not. If I don't understand it, I might not challenge you because I don't want to look like an idiot, but I'm going to go, wait a minute, I'm not lost because I don't understand what it's doing. When that number changes and that one changes to a different number, I'm not putting my behind on the line. And I also would get customers saying, of course, the sales guy's calculator in Excel says he's a great deal. If it's a third-party professional software, the formulas at least have some credibility. I don't know what the right term is. It's repeatable, not on whose mood, what day. One company said to me, a company that was using Excel, you're the fourth person to come in here with the same solution. You've all brought 4 different looks, feels, and numbers. Your company has no credibility anymore because 4 different people calculated it differently. And yeah, let's skip that. Translate. Okay, now we need to get into that business case, the visual that we can get in front of the customer. The Priceberg, trying to get the customer to see, okay, look, we've already talked about what the investment is, and now we're showing you how all these things below are much bigger and more impactful and how I can affect them. I didn't realize this. I think I said this at the beginning. I used to think the logic is all that mattered. I am not an engineer, but I seem to spend too much time with them. What part of it's lighter, so it uses less this? That's all we should care about. But Aristotle said there's 3 things to influencing. So one is the logic. It's got to be understandable. But there's 2 other things. One is the personality and credibility of the person. I've had people say, and I'm not here to say anything, but you got to believe it. You've got to believe you can create that value. You've got to believe the rationale behind that value. You've got to believe the story that you're telling. And what I find is some people will do training and, head office sent us this, and I'm just going to regurgitate it. It comes across as weak. You've got to have your own stories, and it's got to be visual, appealing, vivid. An Excel spreadsheet with a number at the bottom, it doesn't resonate with people as much as, here's the number, but it was this type of company. This is where they were. This was the situation. We came in and did that. Okay. I'm getting a feeling and a visual of what happened. I'm actually seeing your people walking into my plant, sitting down with my engineers, going through a root cause, blah, blah, blah. No, here's a piece of paper. So some of the best classes I see with the reports, and again, this is just my opinion, summary by the value drivers, reduced energy, reduced inventory, reduced water consumption, whatever, so total value created by these different value drivers. By solution, we have this solution. That's how much value we created for you. I also want to track value in progress. Here's what we're reviewing. We've got 4 projects underway across the world with your company. I make examples, and we think it'll be worth this. And these are the 3 other projects that are under consideration right now that will have an impact of X to Y. So what's in the funnel? Customers are buying the future, not what's already happening. And then, the annual, the bar charts and the stacked up and the cumulative, all the stuff that makes it look visual. We talked about the ROI. And then the ability to summarize it by the company, by the country, by a division, by a location, or by a division within a company. Depends who you're talking to. Head office cares about the big number, but when you're talking to the customer in Alabama, they want to know, what did you do for me? So just some things. And the reward, this could be a whole different session, but on the pricing, ways to get paid. The best way is to get paid on the outcome, a value-based agreement. We'll talk about it, but there's other ways to do it that are much simpler. Number 1, stop discounting. Have a realistic list price, or whatever your metric is, I should say, for that segment, that channel, whatever it is, and stop, I'm making numbers up, to 5% off. I come from the industrial world where net profit of 10, 11, 12, well, let's say 10% is really good. It was almost unheard of, like net, not this gross number we keep talking about, net. So 5%, we had people with 5 off, big customer, 5 off, 5 off, 5 off. It's not 5 off 100, it's 5 of 10. It's half. Half the profit is lost if we can't defend our price and give 5% off. A lot of the agreements, we started to increase market share. If I deliver value, I want more of your business. That can be contractually, or the customer will want. The more value you bring to me, the more I want to spend time with you. So I'm going to gain share. Also, when we did price increases, I'm making this up. It's an annual 3% inflation price increase. Look how much value I brought you last year. I brought you a lot more than that price increase. So I want to constantly be showing the value. So when we talk the price increase, it's not out of the blue. And then the gain sharing, the outcome based. And I think I got one more slide there. Yeah. So SKF, I've modeled these with numerous companies. You can either have on the left a full value-based guarantee program, full. This is, you used to pay $10 million to run your facility, as an example. I will come in, $8 million, and every improvement I can get, I get part of it forever. Okay. Just think of your laptops. When they all left your company and they went to Dell, that was Dell's business model. What do you total spend on laptops and people and this? We'll do it for less. Finance goes, yay, immediate savings, but we're going to do it better, faster, quicker, whatever their value proposition was. We found this to work with some industries and some companies in some countries, but a lot of times some companies just push back and go, too risky, too many variables, not big enough. I just don't know. So the one on the right is just a straight value guarantee. And if you remember that ugly slide of the 10% value per year versus the 10% price savings, this is the 4-page agreement that I created, signed with 180 companies. And these are Fortune 1000 companies that said, I will guarantee you X savings per year in value. We have to agree upon these things. What is value? So I'm not going to come in and help you be labor efficient. And then you say at the end of the year, I don't care about labor. I'm not joking. We'd go to some union facilities and we saved you all this labor. And the guy goes, I still have the same head count. I can't get rid of people. But it's funny when you say, oh, so you don't care about that, so we won't help. That's still valuable to us. But we agree on what is the value, what is the calculation. It's X times Y times this, the formula. And it's in your system. It's a formula. Let's agree that that's what formula is. What you'd love to get is the numbers to use. Okay. The average maintenance person is $25 per hour. Well, wait a minute. In this part of the world, it's 20. That part of the world, it's 30. It's this level that's 32. I hate to say, I mean, if you can get down to a specific number on the level of the mechanic, we'll just say that's great. But this is not a dollar cost cents exercise. Let's split the difference. It's a relative difference between the two options that we're looking at. Energy, believe it or not, energy is much more complicated to calculate than I realized, because it's the initial charge, and there's a demand charge, and there's a surge charge. Okay, look, it's 10 cents. I don't know what it is today for industrial customers, but this thing called the internet, so industrial, have the number in the system, update it every year, and then you've got a number to start with. If the customer has a better number, great, change it. But if not, you come to an agreement of what use. The process to sign off on value. If I show you how to save money and you don't implement it, I will calculate it towards this agreement. That's written in the agreement that everybody signed. If not, we found one customer, different industry, they were taking all these value ideas, not implementing them, saying, give me my penalty check, we'll call it, and then implementing the next year. So very clearly, if I bring it to you, it's got validity and veracity around the formulas. And what happens when I exceed the 10%? If I don't hit 10%, I write the check. What we always did is roll that over to the next year. And if customers say, well, I don't want you to do that, okay, then hey, I'm going to tell my team once we hit 10% to stop delivering. You want 15% year one, 10, 10, 10, and 5, or 10, 10, 10? Trust me, 15% year one is better than 10, 10, 10, 10, even though the total is number 50 over the 5 years. So you've got to have some structure. And this is an old quote from my boss, Tom. How many different great ways does my sales team have to discount? We came up with over 400. Big customer, small customer, new industry, big order, Tuesday, end of the year. I mean, you name it. How many tools have I given them to guarantee value? No wonder they revert to the process they had. There's a process to cut the price. There's not a process to guarantee the value. No wonder they go to what they can do. Technically, it's no risk, because if the company was going to say it's a big customer, we would have, our walk away point was 10% price. If I have to write a check, I'm really using their money that I was going to discount anyways. All the years I was there, never wrote a check. And, this is a whole presentation of itself. But one thing I did with one of the clients I was working with is they had a huge OEM. They said, we have to have a structured process to uncover these opportunities. So, if we agree to this, there will be a discovery process, which will include the following things. We will give the tour of the factory. We want to meet all these different people. We want to have an interview with these different functions. Here are the questions we will ask. We will not be wasting their time. It will be pre-planned. It will be structured. You will share the KPIs with us. If we have to sign an NDA, we will. If it's a KPI, they're measuring it. If it's a KPI, it's important. And we'll have a kickoff session where the smart people come in and show, here are the 10 greatest new solutions for the food industry and software. I don't know, and show it to them, and hopefully get some buy-in to start. There has to be a system to prioritize and validate what we're going to do. So a simple matrix, the probability it can happen, the return of it happening, and the ease of implementation were the 3 dimensions we would use. If something's easy, has a high probability of happening, and has a huge ROI, that's a go. If it's a lot of money, very difficult to implement, has a low ROI, put that to the side. So we had a structured meeting to prioritize these things, which would also lead into funding and budgets. And then, a systematic process to, measure the realization, what actually happened, what's moving along, what's ahead of schedule, beating target, at target, or below, so we can go in and fix. Just having this process made customers go, wow, this is so much more than you're going to come in and save me money, because every darn supplier says they're going to come in and save me money. Again, it's not just the business case. The business case is the heart of it all, but saying I've got a process to do all the stuff around it makes it not seem, it's a program. And some final thoughts, which I'm going to get to, similar but different. I don't know why my computer's being a little extra jumpy today. So long story short, I'm sitting with a professor, a gentleman named Jim Anderson, who wrote a book called Value Merchants, one of the first books. It was 2006, but companies taking the value strategy. So he liked what I was doing. He's invited me to a bunch of his classes to co-present with him, and we're out after an executive class, and he goes, Todd, I don't get it. Every one of the CEOs in that room says, we create value, we sell value, and even some of them are already at the point where they're quantifying it. So let's just take the ones that are quantifying it. Why is it not working? And we just started talking, and he was taking notes and everything. And then the next day, I come into our session, and he shows this to me, and I'm like, holy, I was just amazed at how he was able to take our chat and put it into something structured. And he says, really what I heard you say, and I agree, is they haven't taken the value mindset and put it into the new product or new service development side of their business. They're creating products and service without having the value person in the room or a tool in the room to say, what is this worth for the customer to do? Again, Bob can tell us afterwards, I believe that's where Leverage Point started for that market or focus. But how many times companies have come to market with a product or service they say is value, but there is no value? Like companies that I've worked with were notorious for this. So, have the value tool, the value person challenge the new product or service. What is the value going to be? It's got to be part of your selling process. Picking up the phone and calling your value guy, girl, whatever, at the last minute doesn't work. You've got to get customers thinking about value. You have to educate them, all the stuff we talked about. So when you get to the numbers, they're nodding and going, this is worth my time. You have to have the tool. So that's value-based sales tools, because it needs to tie back into your CRM, your activity. The team has to be trained, and that's more than a 3-day. I mean, it is a 2-day, 3-day kickoff, but it's got to be ongoing. It really does. It's a mindset change. And that's why he then says it's got to be an ongoing selling experience. So that's the ability to sell value. But then he goes, and this is where I thought was kind of interesting, the want to sell value. Sales compensation. I'm not in charge of HR, but if you pay your salespeople on volume, not profit, they'll cut a price all day long. And I have people say, Todd, $1 million order, give them 5%. I'm on the golf course this afternoon. If I got to fight for value and fight for that 5%, this is going to be 2 more months. And guess what? Even if they take the sales number from $1 million down to 950,000, that's not that big of a deal. It's half the profit. Holy crap. So the suggestion here is, okay, they are allowed so much discounts, but I would see salespeople that discounted more get more rewarded. No. So here's your territory, here's your volume, here's the amount you can discount. You say under that and hit your target, you're making us more money, you get paid more. If you have to use more discounts to hit that target, and it's going to hurt. It's got to be worth it. Again, whole nother discussion. We talked about value buying options. To me, this idea of a value guarantee is a baby step towards any outcome-based program. It's not risky, etc. You have to have the business culture. I was very lucky that I got to meet my CEO, then eventually worked in his team. But he believed we created value. He just said, we're not getting paid for it. And said, I need a person full time to do this. Eventually, I had people around the world because the company was just too big. But he really, really believed it and said, we've got to invest a little bit. And then the last point here, customer culture. I think you can see I've spent a lot of time with keynotes or at conferences trying to get customers to rethink. Yeah, it's bearings are bearings. I hate to say office supplies are office supplies. I don't have time. Holy crap. Hey, and I had people come, I think we use your stuff. Yes, you're a global steel company. You do. Can you come help us do this? Yes, I can. I got to bring the smart people with me, but try to get customers to rethink that there is more value than maybe their initial thought process was. We talked earlier, what's the price for doing this from procurement, if you remember that early slide. This is research from this Value Merchants book that I mentioned earlier, and the article that we're just kind of going through. And the first four, I'm not going to drain all these, but Monitor Deloitte, 2012, it's only gotten more important than less. But companies that price for value are 24% more profitable than the industry average. And if you're pricing for value, you have to quantify it. There's no other way to do it. And they're 36% more profitable, those who take a volume market share, load the factory mindset. I mean, that's staggering numbers. Your closing rate increases. Your business case is sitting beside not just competitors, but doing nothing or spending money somewhere else. You will close more when they can justify you as an investment and they've got that visual looking business case. Again, reduce discounting. If you could reduce discounting by 1%, 2%, that drops right to the bottom line. That funds your program over and over. You have people, it's only 1%. Let me do the math. 1% of 10 billion. Yeah, even I don't cost that much. Speeds up the sales cycle. I mean, I think the software companies are really good at doing this cost of delay. I've shown you a solution that's going to save you, I'm making this up, $1.2 million a year in whatever. Every 30 days you wait to implement costs you $100,000. Ooh. Okay, that's got more priority than, because 1.2, every year I say 1.2, the unit needs to change. Less churn, operating margin. So some of these ones with the asterisks here come from the new article. It hadn't come out yet. That's why I had to put the asterisks on it. But one company doubled their profitability. Doubled. One company had a 20% higher net promoter score. It was a key driver for them. One company said their sales win rate was 80% higher, and the deal size was 25% larger. So those last four of them are from that MIT Sloan article. If you want to reach out, I can maybe share it. I'm not supposed to be, it's copyrighted. Finishing up here, Bob. I mean, this isn't just Todd speaking or Leverage Point speaking. These are the people that I worked with over the years. You can see the academic, and it's not just the business schools. There's procurement. So University of Tennessee, it's a supply chain school. RMIT was in Europe. Some procurement schools, procurement organizations that have had me come and speak. So NIGP is National Institute of Government Procurement. They've had me to Washington twice, I think. PASIA was Asia procurement. I'm not going to go through all these. ISM is American. CAPS is American from Arizona State Center for Advanced Procurement Studies. The person that runs that wrote a very nice thing in the article and had me come to Europe to present at their conference. Some governments, I wasn't involved with the governments, but they actually write in their tender offers best value. It's our job to show them what best value is. And then there's a bunch of associations. And I think you get a flavor of what I do: value, marketing, training, selling, and pricing. And with that, Bob, I'll leave it with this. You've got my email on here. Leverage Point will get you the slides. If you choose to grab a copy of the book, I'd love a review. At one point, it was the #1 sales book, but Amazon, it bounces up and around, so I don't know what it is today. And stay connected on LinkedIn, and hopefully we have time for some questions, Bob, and I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Todd. Really appreciate it. We do have a couple questions, but I think what we could do is, we kept people wild today. We'll cut people loose. Unless they have any questions, you feel free to type them into the chat. But we can follow up via email with everyone one-on-one with answers to their questions. That's what I did last time. So I think, what we'll be doing is we'll be sharing a recording of today's session with you, and also the deck that Todd used to present. And we'll be posting that to our LinkedIn site, LinkedIn Leverage Point site. So for anyone who would like a copy of that, we will be following up with a link to that in email. All right. Okay. Well, you know what? Let's take just a couple questions here, and let me get them out. Where are they here? One question, Todd, was, how should incentives and compensation change to support value management behaviors? I thought that was.
Yeah, and I think I tried to hit it to say, I mean, there's different ways to do this, but you just take the percentage of discount versus revenue, and then you have green, yellow, red corridors, and then you have kickers is a simpler way to do it. Others get right into it because the salesperson can't control cost. They just know they can, this is what list is. And if, I'm deviating more off list than you are to get to the same revenue number, I should get paid dramatically less. We call it the hockey stick. So if you're hitting your target revenue, but discounting less, you got paid a fair amount more from a bonus perspective.
Okay, great. Another one is, how do you prevent reps from reverting to discounting under quota pressure?
Well, I think there's like 3 or 4 things there. One, it might start with customer culture, and we had to force our boss to understand this. You can't be value, value, value. It's the end of the quarter, get me an order, stuff the channel. You really have to sit back and say, are we, what do we want to be as a company? Who are we as a company? And I'll take missing a quota number more than I'll take discounting in the marketplace. Having systems in place to say, have we given you tools not to discount, i.e. these value guarantees? One country that I used to work with, they couldn't discount until they proved that they did the business case for the customer and there wasn't enough justification in the business case. That was one of the most extreme, but I loved it. I'm like, it's not that hard. And real quickly, Bob, I used to joke, our salespeople spend more of their efforts telling management to cut the price than selling the value to the customer. I'm like, if you took all that effort and went to the customer and demonstrated the value, and again, whether it's the services or the products or whatever you do, we wouldn't be having these. You're arguing back in here. The competitors are doing this, or they don't care, or whatever it is.
All right, we'll do one last question. We appreciate everyone hanging in there for this session. It was really interesting, Todd. I'll say that before we sign off, but I learned a lot. And, value selling is a passion of yours, and you can tell, and it is of mine too. And like you said, you have to have a passion for it. You have to believe in it, and it does work. So the final question we'll jump on is here. What metrics tell you whether value management is working across the sales organization?
That's a great question. And again, on the spot here, I mean, measuring number of cases by rep or by division, by rep, by that, however you do that is one thing, but I don't want to get caught into, just counting cases, because the countries that just counted cases, then when you went in deep, you found that they were the lowest quality cases. One analysis we did at one point was, one company I was working with, won't say who, I think 70% of their value was in December. There was no seasonality in their business. It was part of their, you have to do so many cases. So at the end of the year, and I honestly think they made them up. I mean, I don't want to use the term lie, but we measured customer signed off cases. So if you're in a value agreement, I can't just say, Mr. Customer, I saved you all this money. We had to have the document signed. Those had a higher weighting. We also had a KPI of number of value agreements. Those ones where we said, okay, this is for our key account. If every one of you guys could get one value agreement, that would be huge. And a lot of these are over 3 years or 4 years type stuff.
Awesome. Hey, well, Todd, thanks so much. We hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Happy New Year. I know you're traveling to some warm places, so that I'm jealous. But to everyone who's with us, thank you again very, very much. We'll be sending out a recording as well as the PowerPoint. And if you have any questions, shoot them over, and we're happy to answer them. Okay.
Sure, everyone. Thanks for attending.
Thank you all. Talk to you later.